Other people had written filler issues for the Hulk during Stan's run on the character, but Roy Thomas would be the first to step in and send the character on his own direction. On the one hand, Thomas chose to keep the character more closely tied to his support cast, with Betty, Thunderbolt Ross, and Major Talbot usually not gone for very long. But on the other hand, Thomas brought the Hulk into more crossovers with the rest of the Marvel Universe, something the character was doing much less of once he had his own book. The character he most frequently mixed it up with during this period was actually the Submariner, once during the Tales to Astonish days, and again in the Hulk's own book. And this was in addition to the Wilderness years, when the two had fought before becoming temporary allies against the Avengers. It was therefore an interesting choice for Thomas to decide to create a new team with the two of them together. But first, we have to pick up where we left off. The Hulk had leapt away after both he and Ross seemed to reach the decision that they could never stop opposing one another, leading us now to issue 121. The Hulk is still lamenting being constantly hounded when he reaches Florida, only for his continued string of poor luck to show up again as he's nearly hit by a launching tactical missile and is knocked off into a swamp when it self-destructs. Ross, Talbot, and Betty are hot on the trail, following him back from Costa Salvador, and the possible sighting is enough to alter course to investigate. The Hulk limps away, injured after the blast and the fall, and his attempt to seek shelter in a shack is thwarted by a bunch of radioactive waste cans that the government has stashed out here. Furious, he smashes them and storms off into the muck, unaware that, thanks to his tantrum, a creature has been birthed called the Glob. I should probably clarify this because if you have only a passing familiarity with the figures involved, this can be confusing. You more than likely have heard of Swamp Thing, given his cinematic and television history. You might have heard of Marvel's character Man-Thing, the comic giant-sized Man-Thing, besides having an amusingly juvenile name, was where we first met Howard the Duck. Well, the story goes that Roy Thomas was a huge fan of the Golden Age character, the Heap, and supposedly tried to acquire the rights to the character. The Heap was a World War I German pilot shot down whose body was intermingled with the swamps and eventually came to life during World War II. The Glob is an homage to the Heap. Note that the text box states, "But if name it you must, then call it Shape or Heap." It wasn't until at least a year later that Stan Lee would call Thomas in to discuss a character idea with him, and Thomas thought it sounded similar to the Heap. Eventually, Man-Thing came out just before Swamp Thing came out. It has been alleged that Man-Thing was stolen because Jerry Conway, who would write the first issue of Man-Thing, was supposedly rooming with Len Wein, the creator of Swamp Thing, during this time. Now, I can't comment on the accuracy of these rumors, but I felt it provided context to know that the Glob actually predates both characters. But it has to be acknowledged the character is clearly inspired by the Heap, since, of course, Man-Thing was co-created by the guy who wrote this issue. As the Glob moves through the swamp, it remembers a man in prison who received a letter that his wife was dying and denied a chance to see her. So he escaped, but is pursued and dies in the swamp. But as it slouches on, Ross has ordered Talbot to keep Betty safe, while the army launches an attack on the Hulk, which fails, and Betty is endangered. Not by the Hulk, but the Heap, whose primitive mind only recalls the woman being sought by an escaped prisoner. Talbot can sense it's not harmful, but still tries, futilely, to stop it from taking her, forced to head into the swamp to inform Ross of the development. Meanwhile, the Hulk spots the Glob and orders it to put Betty down, but even when it does, the Hulk attacks because he is confused by its gaze and admits that if he doesn't understand, he just fights. But Ross had previously dumped an anti-radiation chemical into the swamp to try to kill the Hulk. Instead, it's dissolving the Glob while it's holding Betty. Together, the pair are able to save her, but the Glob is soon lost. And in mourning over the loss of someone that he sensed could be his friend, the Hulk leaves Betty for Ross and heads away. But as you can guess, this isn't the last time the Hulk would cross paths with the Glob. With issue 122, Thomas brings the Hulk back to his oldest superhero adversaries, the Fantastic Four. The Hulk begins by attacking a train under the mistaken belief that all trains deliver soldiers and weapons to attack him. And so when Banner awakens to discover the wreckage, he's horrified that the Hulk could have killed someone in this pointless attack. It's fortunate then that he soon finds a newspaper announcing a cure to the Hulk's condition. So he hops another train to get to New York and meet with Reed Richards. Unfortunately, a pair of train-hopping transients decide to rob him, thinking the newspaper tied in a pouch on his waist is something valuable, which triggers the transformation. But after they jump the train, Banner is able to influence the Hulk sufficiently to not leave the train, but to continue riding it to their destination. For further bad luck, though, while Reed had informed the security forces to expect Banner or the Hulk and what to do in the event of his arrival, one of them then swaps places with a buddy who wasn't given the briefing, and so that guy causes trouble when Banner tries to get up to see the Fantastic Four. The Hulk comes out and soon is battling his way towards Reed's lab. Well, fortunately, Banner has added his own ideas on a possible cure to the newspaper article, so after some quick work, Reed rigs up a sonic blaster to knock him out cold, leading us into the next issue. Using the changes that Banner had included, Reed breaks the Hulk down on the molecular level to restore him back as Bruce Banner. Except this isn't a cure, as Bruce demonstrates by intentionally turning into the Hulk, but retaining his own mind when he changes into the monster. But this was just to demonstrate that there is no need to fear the Hulk again, that Banner controls the change and is in control of the Hulk's body, but he plans never to change again. After the Thing gives a speech in support of him, Banner's free to go on his way, contacts Betty, and meets up with her with General Ross's blessings, so long as the Hulk is no longer a menace. Everything goes right, except the fear that the Hulk's savage mind might still be in his, that if he were to change it might take over. Except Ross needs the Hulk. There's a new weapon so powerful that it's likely some hostile force will attempt to steal it while it is being moved, and the Hulk needs to guard it. Banner is hesitant but agrees, and Ross finally admits he respects him as a man for this. But during the trip, the leader returns to steal the tripod, getting inside while Banner rescues himself and the driver. He's able to retain his mind as the Hulk while fighting the leader until the tripod uses knockout gas on him. But rather than knocking him out, it suppresses Banner and allows the Savage Hulk persona to emerge, attacking without restraint and prepared to kill the leader with his bare hands. Only the horror of this impending murder is enough to drive Banner to regain control, although the leader escapes. Issue 124 then opens with the leader outraged about this, reading about Bruce Banner's pending marriage to Betty. He's ready to just disintegrate Banner in his frustration, but stops only because, as so often happens, he decides that that's too good for his enemy. He wants to bring out the Savage Hulk and have him kill Betty, and only then kill Banner. But to handle the Hulk's strength, he'll need an ally, and after considering the many enemies that the Hulk has fought, settles on the Rhino, concluding he's the perfect combination for his purposes, extremely strong, but not terribly bright. He actually survived the fight with the Hulk, but the doctors aren't able to do anything for him. He's still comatose. So the leader steals him, restores him, and gives him a new suit to battle the Hulk when the time comes. Using a powerful ray, the leader zaps Banner just as he's about to complete the ceremony to marry Betty, in the house she was born in no less, causing him to transform into the Hulk. The leader also deduced how Banner and Reed's invention gave Banner's mind control of the Hulk body, and so negates that, bringing back the Savage Hulk in the hopes that in his anger he would kill Betty. The house is destroyed in the Hulk's rampage, but the Rhino attacks before the leader can reduce the Hulk's mind to the savagery needed to begin murdering all around him. In the confusion, the Rhino gets blasted by the leader's own gamma cannon, gets outraged, turns on him, and the two in the end fly off, seemingly exploding high in the air. The Hulk, without Banner's mind anymore, has no idea what's been going on, and leaps off, leaving Betty grief-stricken in the arms of Major Talbot, and her father being taken away in an ambulance. This is now the third period when the Hulk with Banner's mind is explored, with his first two both leading to the Joe persona taking over. This time, however, Banner has a different relationship with the Hulk than before. Whereas Joe was the part of Banner that liked having the power of the Hulk, the destruction that the Savage Hulk has caused so terrifies Banner that, unlike in those previous cases, he is hesitant to get comfortable with this power. Unlike in the early days when a machine was needed to become the Hulk, and he would do so for any old reason, this more experienced Banner could do so with but a thought, but never would. He only does it the one time when his future father-in-law pleads with him to, and even then hesitantly. This more experienced Banner wants to avoid at all costs becoming the Savage Hulk again. Narratively, how Thomas decides to end this brief period was a great choice. First, it avoids the predictable, "Oh, I forgot about X, Y, or Z" to justify going back to the status quo, that this was some mistake on their part, that the solution didn't work out. Second, this means that the leader has hurt Banner, has stolen the one thing that Banner wanted from him, a normal life. It wasn't the revenge that he wanted, but it was revenge nevertheless. And thirdly, this means that the destruction unleashed is completely the fault of the villain, not of Banner. It's not Banner's mistake that leads to a false sense of security. The leader literally turns him into an out-of-control monster. The Hulk may have done that, but the leader is the one who dropped a confused and frustrated creature into a situation that he just didn't know how to handle. The Hulk made a guest appearance in issue number 66 of the Uncanny X-Men, also being written by Roy Thomas. Professor X is in a coma, and when Jean Grey looks into his mind, trying to find out how to help him, there is an image of the Hulk. Assuming that Dr. Banner might have the answer, the original X-Men, save for Iceman, head to Las Vegas, where the Hulk has been sighted. A fight breaks out because the Hulk assumes that any costumed person intends to attack him, but thanks to Jean's mental influence, the Hulk is eventually knocked out and turns back into Banner. Banner does recall talking with Xavier about using gamma rays to treat mental exhaustion, even built a device based upon their theories that could be used for that, except Talbot has arrived with the military. Talbot's bullheaded insistence on taking Banner in rather than helping any of the muties prompts the Hulk to then emerge. After fighting the army a little, the Hulk leaps away, the X-Men in pursuit, following him to eventually discover one of Banner's secret laboratories. The device is retrieved even amidst the battle with the Hulk, and later is used to help out Xavier, ending this crossover. Back in Hulk number 125, the titular character is still feeling confused about recent events. Bruce Banner is now only the man who had held the Hulk captive, seemingly forgetting their dual persona for the moment. But the memories of Betty, especially in light of how close she and Banner had come in recent days, is overwhelming for the Hulk, confusing him with the complicated emotions around her, until he finally passes out and transforms into Banner during his sleep. Meanwhile, Major Talbot learns of a new threat to the Earth, a radioactive comet, which he tells to the hospitalized General Ross and Betty. It's been kept a secret, but naturally word about the end of the world leaks, so when Banner hears about it on the radio, he turns himself in, hoping that he might be able to help. While Talbot despises the Hulk and is jealous of Banner having Betty's affection, he knows that Banner's brains are probably their only hope. Indeed he is. They're going to use a rocket with a nuclear payload to destroy the comet before it can reach Earth, and Banner's going to be the one to pilot it with his scientific genius. After destroying it, though, there's an unexpected development. The comet came to Earth because it was fused with and controlled by the Absorbing Man, who has attached himself to the rocket now. Discovering this is so shocking that the Hulk emerges, and the two fight on the descending rocket right to the ground. Over the course of the fight, Absorbing Man gets the idea to absorb the Hulk himself, to then use his own strength against him. This does successfully knock the Hulk out, and he turns back into Banner, while Absorbing Man is holding up a mountain. But that's a problem for him, because the Absorbing Man's power is not some kind of super science, it's thanks to his guardian magic. Absorbing Man is actually an enemy of Thor, see? Consequently, this isn't like some kind of scientific rationale to it. And so, when the Hulk becomes Banner, the Absorbing Man likewise turns back into a human. Because a human Absorbing Man cannot hold up a mountain, he tries briefly to turn into one, but even that isn't enough, and he is crushed under the mountain when it falls on him. In the following issue, the still unconscious Banner is collected by some cultists and brought to a creepy old house for a ritual involving the Nightcrawler, not to be confused with the teleporting mutant of the same name. They're planning to send the Hulk off with this magic rite of theirs because, well, it gets a little complicated. See, this all started with Doctor Strange. The sales on his book were not very good, even for one that came out every other month. In fact, to try to make the character seem more like one of the more popular Marvel superheroes instead of just a sorcerer, Roy Thomas had the idea of giving him a mask to wear. At first, this was to cope with someone having stolen his appearance. But later, to protect his identity, despite the fact that Doctor Strange's secret identity was Doctor Strange, well, they needed to sort out that little conundrum. So, Eternity altered reality to give Doctor Strange the civilian identity of Stephen Sanders in issue number 182 of Doctor Strange. However, the following issue, where Doctor Strange was answering the call of his old friend Kenneth Ward about a mysterious idol, well, that was the last of the series, ending it on a cliffhanger. Much like Stan in the early days, Roy Thomas wrote many issues of Marvel at this time. So even though Doctor Strange was canceled, he was able to pick up the storyline over in the issues of Submariner 3 months later, issue number 22. Doctor Strange appears using his power to put an idea in the Submariner's mind about the idol, drawing him from his underwater kingdom to the home of the late Kenneth Ward, where he discovers the hiding place of the idol. Strange soon appears and reveals that Ward's supposed daughter is actually a demon in disguise, and then fills Namor in on what's happened. But the girl's cat was a demon as well, who uses the idol to open the way for invading demons called the Undying Ones. Together, the heroes drive the Undying Ones back to their own dimension, but Doctor Strange insists that one of them must remain behind to battle the Undying Ones, and refuses to allow Namor to be that one, instead hurling the Submariner back to our reality and sealing the breach behind him, leaving himself trapped, of course. 2 months after that is our current issue of The Incredible Hulk. The chant of the cultist in charge ends with a mention of freeing the Undying Ones, and Banner finds himself hurled into the realms beyond. At that moment, Doctor Strange is the Undying One's prisoner. They're trying to force him to use his magic to open a portal to Earth. But another way can be found if the Nightcrawler is defeated, which is why they've arranged for Banner to be sent here, to do exactly that. Except Banner does not want to become the Hulk anymore. He would rather die than continue giving in to the monster within. When the female cultist sides with Banner, she is then thrown in to join him, and her regalia gives away to the Nightcrawler that she is on the side of the Undying Ones, his enemy. When she is attacked, Banner gives in and transforms, during which the Nightcrawler's own power is turned against him and his cosmos, destroying it and sending all three of them into the realm of the Undying Ones, where the Nightcrawler then battles them for possession of their realm. During the chaos, the cult chooses to take Doctor Strange's place so that he can leave with the Hulk, who becomes Banner again upon returning to New York City. While providing Banner with clothing from his home, Doctor Strange muses that it's time for him to go back to just being a medical consultant and to leave his sorcery behind, prompting Banner to wish that he could just as easily do the same with his own dual life. The following issue picks up with Bruce Banner being so lost in thought after what just happened that he gets a glancing blow from a truck, enough to trigger the change. When the crowd flees, some of them start to disappear, and when the cops blame the Hulk for it and try to get him, they too vanish. The Hulk figures whoever is doing this must be trying to help him, and when the one responsible, Tyrannus, hears this, gloats that despite all of his protests, the Hulk desires friendship. Mogul is summoned, the most powerful minion of Tyrannus, and completely loyal, even though he has no memory of his past. The Mole Man is again causing a problem for Tyrannus, having retaken the Fountain of Youth, and so he wants the Hulk to help Mogul retake it. Mogul tries to persuade the Hulk, especially when the Hulk admits to feeling loneliness, but mention of Tyrannus makes clear that Mogul works for his enemy. Still, Mogul can hold his own against the Hulk's strength, and eventually the Hulk is convinced that Mogul won't harm him, and that if so, he's willing to give friendship with him a chance. It's a friendship that Mogul returns, feeling lonely himself as the only one of his kind among the minions of Tyrannus. The two form a strong bond, and when the battle begins, the pair lead from the front. But things take a disastrous turn when Mogul's arm is shot and machinery is revealed underneath. Mogul is, in fact, a robot. The Hulk can't comprehend that a robot could be capable of thoughts and emotions. He thinks that Mogul was built by Tyrannus to trick the Hulk into working for him. And it sounds like that might actually be the case. Tyrannus even says that Mogul was programmed to think he had feelings, implying for the reader that they might not have been real. It's down to your interpretation, though, whether or not you want to think that Mogul truly felt friendship for the Hulk. But what we do know for sure is that the Hulk is so outraged that he destroys Mogul, smashes up the Mole Man's defenses, then returns to Tyrannus' own city to smash that up as well. The Hulk is devastated over having and then losing a friend in this way. The next issue, however, shows that regardless of his heartache, the Hulk is still trapped underground, with no idea how to get to the surface other than trying to punch his way there and failing time after time. And this draws attention, especially because he's heading right for the San Andreas fault line and could potentially start an enormous earthquake that could destroy the entire state. So General Ross has no choice but to call in some help, the Avengers. He's expecting to get the likes of Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, but he's a bit miffed that he gets Quicksilver, the Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, the Vision, and Goliath, a Hawkeye only with the ability to grow large. What needs to be noted here is that the Avengers aren't just here to prevent the Hulk from unintentionally destroying California. They're hoping that since he was once an Avenger, he can become one again. Not the first time that they've thought about this. They track his path underground thanks to the damage that he's doing, and finally Vision has a plan, dropping through the rock until he has located the Hulk, provoking him into following him up to the surface, where a device waits to turn him back into Bruce Banner, if they can get him to stand in between these two electrodes. But once the Hulk is trapped there, they make the mistake of saying he'll turn into Banner, which enrages the Hulk, and the angrier Hulk gets, the stronger he gets, so that the machine is destroyed before it can turn him back. He leaps away and transforms out of sight of the Avengers and the army, leading into our next issue. Issue number 129 shows Banner lost in the wilderness, but being followed by a flying machine of some kind. Eventually he's picked up by a guy in a truck called Sam Stearns. Seems that Sam has a problem, no memory of anything other than his name, no idea why he's out here or what his life is. He vaguely recalls that Banner is the Hulk, but his life is a mystery. In fact, the only reason that Sam picked up Banner was because he knew him from somewhere and thought he might have some answers, but it was just because Banner's alter ego makes him a sort of celebrity. Sam gives him clothes and takes him towards Los Angeles, and when they stop for lunch, asks a bit about Banner and the Hulk. During the conversation, the Glob comes up, the swamp creature that befriended the Hulk before being destroyed, And after hearing about how it might be even stronger than the Hulk himself, Sam suddenly has some kind of mental break and runs out of the place and into an alley, pleading for whatever is happening to him to stop. Only what's happening is he's returning to his true form, the leader. He wanted to defeat the Hulk, see, who was his true enemy, not Banner. He could have easily killed him, but it's always been the Hulk that's thwarted him. And so, he transformed himself back to his human form. Roy Thomas had the clever idea of having this mirror the Hulk's own transformation, the way that Banner and the Hulk often don't know what the other one is up to, but can sometimes create an influence. So too does this laborer, Sam Stern, have no idea that deep inside he's the genius supervillain, the leader, while the leader is able to subtly influence him. This development wouldn't be maintained, however. In time, Sam Stearns would simply be the leader without his great intelligence, still ambitious and willing to resort to anything including murder to get what he wants. But this isn't a contradiction. What we saw with the Hulk, once Bruce Banner first had his mind in the Hulk's body, that over time the power changed him anyway. The leader likewise is the consequence of Sam Stearns gaining mental faculties to the point that his ambition becomes all-consuming. The man that he was is still there the same way that Banner was still there, but over time, the leader displaced Sam Stearns so that he could control both bodies, his human form and his gamma form. The leader returns to Florida and uses his intellect to recreate the Glob from the swamp, then puts the mental image into the creature of the Hulk, threatening the girl the Glob sought to protect. So, as Banner, hiding in a sewer, learns of all of this from a scrap of newspaper, the Glob attacks him. Banner changes, and the Hulk leaves his friendship behind in the wake of the onslaught. But it doesn't matter because he's powerless to hurt the Glob directly. He unwittingly tries to destroy it with a truck full of fuel that engulfs the Glob with fire, but he's not happy about it, wishing he could have befriended the creature instead. In fact, even when the Glob emerges and they begin fighting again, the Hulk still wishes he could have Glob as a friend again. So rather than battling him, he flees to not have to fight it. But the Glob is relentless. So in the end, the Hulk destroys it, for now, with electricity. Roy Thomas took over the Hulk along with several other books, and so, to make the task easier, we've seen him throw the Hulk's classic adversaries at him. The Leader, the Rhino, Tyrannus, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, even the Absorbing Man, despite being a Thor enemy, will frequently be listed as part of the Hulk's rogue gallery now. But he has two themes for the Hulk himself emerging here. One, the wish for friendship, which we've seen before, is being voiced more frequently. The second is a growing hatred for Bruce Banner. Both will influence where the character goes from here. The Hulk and Namor were complementary characters to each other. They had little in common, save for great strength and a contempt for the human race. And they were as likely as not to fight each other as work together. But Namor at least had a degree of respect for the Hulk, even if his brutishness would rankle someone with a royal background. Thus it was no surprise that several months down the line, Thomas would team the pair up in Namor's book. What was a surprise was the decision to also bring in the Silver Surfer, who had previously encountered the Hulk in Tales to Astonish, remember. Issue 34 of the Submariner actually opens with the Hulk because it picks up after the Incredible Hulk 138. Nothing to worry about missing, as the events of that book aren't relevant to the story here, except that it ends with the Hulk being washed out to sea in that issue, but just tromping through the wilderness in his next book. The Hulk says he swam far after that, which he has, considering the island he arrives on is San Pablo in the Caribbean, under the despotic rule of El General, who knows the Hulk well enough to know that his soldiers attacking him only provoked a monster that otherwise would have been less of a threat if they'd left him alone. But now angered, Namor, monitoring the situation, agrees with his advisor that the Hulk could help with the problem that they're facing from a project in the Caribbean related to a weather machine, which could be disastrous. And unfortunately, Namor's past actions means that his words will likely fall on deaf ears with surface dwellers. Only action will work. Knowing the Hulk might be difficult to persuade, Namor is more encouraged upon seeing the Silver Surfer, whom he knows only by reputation, and vice versa. When he arrives, a fight inevitably breaks out between the two, but when he learns of what is at stake, the Surfer not only joins Namor, but brings him to see the Hulk as well. Naturally, that leads to another fight, although brief, between Namor and the Hulk, cut short only because El General decides to attack all three of them, convincing Hulk that Namor must be his ally again. Any one of these alone could have easily crushed his army, and so together they devastate it, so much so that the rebels are able to seize control and El General loses his sanity. Issue 35 continues as the three fly to their true destination, as they try to explain to the Hulk that their actions are to defend their world, as much as it has attacked all three of them in the past. But that's why it's hard to contain the Hulk, who still itches to fight after last issue, and so ignores Namor's insistence that it'd be better to issue demands from a position of strength rather than try to use brute force on this. Namor intervenes, and it's down to the Surfer to then stop the two from coming to blows between the Hulk's stubbornness and Namor's pride. Turns out that this whole thing is a project by the United Nations. So, when they refuse to let Atlantean scientists check out the weather machine, the men are quickly driven off. But there is a backup plan in place. The Avengers, who will take on the nation team that will be the Defenders. This is a perfect way to contrast what this new team will be, especially given the very first panel we see of them. There the Avengers are, gathered in their mansion, holding a meeting under the chairman of the day, Captain America, who is discussing how to meet their UN obligations while also doing a TV spot for charity. In one panel, Thomas establishes what the Avengers are: mainstream, respectable, organized and forward-thinking, with concern for threats to the world and also to their public image. The Defenders, on the other hand, are just as likely as not to beat the crap out of each other. The Defenders are a non-team, as some call it, because from the very beginning, it's all about how they aren't here defending the world, except for the fact that they happen to live on it too. These are simply not team players, as shown by the fact that the Hulk was an Avenger and was gone after one issue. And that was when he was a lot more reasonable. Still, having read the issue when it happened, it's hard not to see the summary of his departure as a bit of selective remembering on Thor's part when he sums it up for the audience, especially the way he describes the Hulk's mindless savagery of the time, which was nothing of the sort. I have nothing against Thor, and it's entirely possible that Thomas was instead using this to retroactively smooth over the Hulk's complicated history. Just that it's all the more of a demonstration the respectable Avengers who pose for pictures are so not like the disreputable Defenders, who are only interested in preserving the world because they're standing on it right now. Thor, Iron Man, and Goliath are the ones left behind when the call comes from the UN that they need protection for their weather machine, even as the Atlantean scientists are there looking it over. Things quickly come to blows as the Hulk won't be contained, jumping Thor. The two have a history, after all. But while those two are a fair fight, the only reason that Iron Man is able to even slightly catch the Silver Surfer off guard is that the latter's heart really isn't in this. He's bothered that they came here to protect the world and have reduced the situation of violence. And as for Namor and Goliath, well, Namor so easily bests Goliath that he quickly has to go from fighting the Avenger to trying to save him before he drowns. Fortunately, the Atlanteans adequately demonstrate that the reactors that power this weather machine are unstable at the needed power level and would have threatened the entire world if they had instead exploded while under the expected load. The Hulk heads off, upset that he is not allowed to destroy the rest of the weather machine, and the Silver Surfer leaves, disgusted at the barbarity of the rest, while Namor goes off with his bride-to-be, a point which will be relevant for us soon. As expected, the strange team-up went down really well, especially with Roy Thomas and Stan Lee themselves, and the idea was that they should try out a more proper Defenders book. But there was one fly in the ointment. Stan just didn't really like other people writing the Silver Surfer. He'd given Thomas special dispensation for this two-parter, but he didn't want the Surfer to be a regular part of the team. Needing someone to replace him then, Thomas suggested the previously shelved Dr. Strange, who had worked with both characters after his book was canceled, remember. They'd been looking for a way to bring him back, and partnering him up with other characters was a wise way to do that. And Dr. Strange offered something that this team was lacking, someone to give them direction. Now, Namor tried. The problem was his pride frequently got the better of him. But Dr. Strange was a human that the others could trust, because despite that, he was detached from worldly pursuits that distracted other men. He was a sentinel against great threats to our world. Without being beholden to anyone save his sense of responsibility to that, the others always knew Strange's directions were solely to deal with the solution to the crisis at hand, and never for personal gain or his own ego. In fact, Strange was the core of this group, as the planet's solitary defender in his role, but knowing that he may need to call upon these others if the crisis was beyond him. Stan wrote the Surfer in the Fantastic Four and Thor during this time, but after a year and a half, the Surfer was able to be brought back to the Defenders. He has only a cameo in the first issue of this pilot series. The four of them are considered to be the original Defenders. Again, they're a non-team, so there's plenty of wiggle room to justify that all four of them have a legit claim to that. The team officially forms in the quarterly book Marvel Features #1. Because it's quarterly, the stories are self-contained adventures. But again, this was really a pilot series for the Defenders. The backup story in the first issue explains Dr. Strange's return after we saw him renounce his powers in the pages of The Incredible Hulk. I hate to keep going off topic from the Hulk, but it helps to provide some context to these strange events. He goes past his old Greenwich sanctum and discovers, to his shock, that Wong is there tending to himself. That is, Dr. Strange, in his superhuman guise, complete with the mask. Stephen confronts the supposed Dr. Strange, but he can't do much without his power, and all while Dr. Strange insists that he's the real one and this man in his street clothes is nothing. The Ancient One returns Dr. Strange's powers to him, skipping over the need for study and meditation to reclaim it, so that he can vanquish the Masked One, and reveal that this is actually Baron Mordo, his enemy, using this masked persona as a chance to slip into the life of his rival. Thus, Dr. Strange reclaims his powers and forgoes returning to the masked appearance that made this deception so easy. But in the main story, the one that we're here for, Dr. Strange finds his old enemy, Yandroth, the so-called Scientist Supreme, to his Sorcerer Supreme, who's dying, except this death is by design. You see, he has rigged up a device using a combination of science and magic to destroy the world with him. Unable to handle this alone, he seeks out first Namor, who suggests the Silver Surfer help as well after their last team-up. But the Surfer is dazed when he attempts to pass Galactus' invisible barrier around the planet, and thus is not in any condition to help in time. Instead, Dr. Strange finds the Hulk and visits him in his astral form, where we first learn of the Hulk's unexpected ability to see Dr. Strange's astral form. This is unrelated to his simple mind, as we might have expected it to be, because we eventually see that the Hulk's other personas could see him too, sometimes to Dr. Strange's annoyance. Using this, Dr. Strange insults the Hulk to lure him into following his astral form back to Namor, who intervenes to ensure that he can't smash Strange's helpless body. Getting his attention, Strange offers a chance for a lot of fighting, which will bring him glory. But the Hulk makes clear he doesn't fight for glory. He only does it to not be bothered. But what makes him inclined to listen to Dr. Strange is twofold: that he's a human who offers the hand of friendship, and that he does not turn against the Hulk. As the Hulk says in issue #2, Strange is special because he's not afraid of the Hulk like all of the rest of them. Even Rick in the end was. Remember that Thomas wrote the issue of the Hulk where the Hulk briefly worked for Tyrannus simply because of the opportunity to get a friend. So that gives you a bit of an insight into how he sees the Hulk, as someone who, despite his actions, is lonely. Anyway, they find Yandros' lighthouse, requiring the great strength of the Hulk from the front and of Namor from the back in order to get through the barrier. But that is when Strange learns the trick, that this was Yandros' plan all along. The Omegatron within needs the power of the two Titans that Strange has brought in order to trigger the very planet-destroying weapon that they came to stop. Having warned the two about possible illusions, Dr. Strange ironically finds that his allies won't listen to him, presuming that he's a recreation meant to thwart their mission. Thus, Strange must actually create an illusion in order to trick them into fighting each other to buy some time. Remember how I said that Namor was off to be married? Well, his bride-to-be was murdered and replaced by another who wanted to have the authority of being queen. So Strange makes the Hulk look like his bride's murderer, compelling Namor to attack, while making Namor look like some monster, which is all the provocation the Hulk needs. This then allows Strange to focus entirely on the Omegatron, stopping its explosion by slowing time to a crawl for it so that it never completes its task. The nature of their non-team status is shown quickly in issue number 2, as the threat of Dormammu weighs on Dr. Strange. Dormammu's minions are plotting to bring their master into the world. Strange muses that he has the Hulk and Namor as allies to call upon if it becomes necessary, but only if it seems that he is unable to handle the threat himself. The nature of the Defenders as a team is they come together when they have to, but otherwise they are left to themselves. But when Strange is tricked into his astral form and his body enchanted so that he can't return to it, the cultists steal his body to use as a vessel for Dormammu, the Hulk and Submariner are unintentionally called by Clea, not seen since the Doctor Strange solo book was cancelled more than 2 years earlier. Seeing the image, the two heroes come, the Hulk recalling Doctor Strange as, quote, a good man, didn't fear the Hulk. Hulk always prompts terrified authorities to attack, and he doesn't take that well, and so there's a great deal of mayhem before he and Namor arrive and learn what has happened to Doctor Strange. Clea is able to use her limited powers to turn the Hulk back into Banner so they can pursue the cultists, and use tranquilizers to once again keep Banner from getting wound up enough to turn into the Hulk during their journey. They work too well, though. It's not until cultists dogpile him that Banner finally can get worked up enough to turn into the Hulk, although with enough influence on his alter ego so that immediately after that, the Hulk tosses a boulder so that a torrent of water flows their way, giving strength to the flagging Namor, who's been on dry land for too long. They make easy work of the cultists and allow Strange to re-enter his own body and deal with Dormammu, saving the day. By becoming a Defender, the Hulk now has the best of both worlds as far as being a character goes. He has his outsider status. One can't help but wonder what it would have done for the Avengers if the Hulk had remained as part of their team, given the army's insistence of always going after him. Yet also by being on the Defenders, Thomas has ensured that the Hulk can be more than just a hounded monster, without taking that away. He's not a vigilant guard for Earth, yet he can be counted on to defend it if the situation demands it. The Hulk is a monster, but what often wins over a monster in the end is friendship, and that's what the Defenders offered him that the Avengers never could. A good friend will help you move. A true friend will help you move a body. Or in the case of the Defenders, help out when yours is the body that has been moved.